Caucus, and it's great to have a conference where we can all come together and listen to the stories from the various state freedom caucuses. And I know I was several years ago, before there was a state freedom caucus network, I went to a conference with my wife that CPI had in Florida, and I was sitting next to Cleta Mitchell, and all the Freedom Caucus members were up there and talking, and I said, boy, I said, Cleta, it'd really be nice if we had something like this in Illinois, so that members had a team to play on, and fast forward, and we see what's happened now with that idea of having a statewide Freedom Caucus membership. And I know it's been a real blessing to my wife in DC to have a team to play on when she got there, and I know that it's nice to have a group of guys here that you can trust 100% that they will always have your back, and they're always going to proceed with truth, logic, and common sense. And one of the reasons why we even exist is because the Republicans refuse to act like Republicans, and that's the reason why the Freedom Caucus even came into existence, because they knew that we were trying to draw people back to some of the fundamentals that make America America, make Illinois Illinois, and to be called back to some of the principal documents that define who we are. And I think that you've got to look at the principles in the Scripture. You have to look to our Constitution and the Republican Party platform. And that's what, in essence, in a nutshell, what we are trying to drive our caucus back to, those defining principles to make us who we are.
Representative Halbrook, your thoughts?
Representative Brad Halbrook, 107th from Shelbyville. It's great to be here with a group of like-minded legislators from all over the nation. It's great to hear from our national leaders on the 10th anniversary of the founding of the House Freedom Caucus. I think when I first came to General Assembly, the conservative movement was there, but it wasn't very strong. And over the years it's grown, and the House Freedom Caucus, with the generation of the State Freedom Caucus Network, has given us a track to run on, a track to grow, and to be strengthened. And I think we're seeing the success of that, and we'll continue to see the success and the fruit of this effort.
Senator Chesney, you are not in the House, you're a senator. You're the only Republican senator in the Freedom Caucus. Talk about why you decided to be in the Freedom Caucus.
Well, it's an easy choice. The Freedom Caucus exists because the majority of the Republicans that are in the legislature don't vote how they campaign, right? That's why a Freedom Caucus exists. So it's nice to get around like-minded individuals where we can share our political war stories and talk about the challenges that we experience, but also the successes. The General Assembly comprises of 177 individuals, of which only 11% are Freedom Caucus members. Within the Republican minority, only 11% of elected Republicans are Freedom Caucus members. So I think a lot of people have to ask the question is, why aren't they Freedom Caucus members? Many don't qualify because of their votes, and others aren't courageous enough to join the party platform that we all talk about on the campaign trail. And so all the Freedom Caucus members that we've had a chance to interact with over the course of the last couple of days vote how they campaign, which is refreshing. And so we take what we learned today and what we've learned over the last couple of days, and we try to implement those not only in the districts but down in Springfield, so we can improve the lives of those that we represent. It's interesting. It's only in Springfield that it's controversial to give people more of their money or let them take home more of the money that they make, right? And so we have Republicans and Democrats that have coalesced and conspired to take more of the tax dollars that we all work so hard to keep. And so it was Republicans and Democrats that joined together to pass the gas tax. It was Democrats and Republicans that joined together to pass CEJA, the Green New Scam. And so the Freedom Caucus talks about individuals not only in the state of Illinois but throughout the country that have been very deceptive in their application their application of viewpoints of freedom throughout the country. So it's been great to be here, and we'll continue to fight on and fight for the taxpayers of the state of Illinois.
All right, Representative, your thoughts.
Dave Freese, representative for the 115th. This has been really educational. We do things within the state of Illinois and Springfield on how we get our message out, and in listening to representatives and senators from other states, how they get their message out, and how they put pressure not only on their fellow Republicans but on Democrats to change on how they bring bills, how they pass bills, how they kill bills. It's been really educational. Learned a lot, and obviously love working with these guys, and look forward to several more years with this.
Representative Wilhour?
Yeah, thank you. It's good to be here. Representative Blain Wilhour, 110th District, South Central Illinois. In politics, not just in the state of Illinois, but in this country, I think we got a deficit of a couple things. It's courage and accountability, and that has downstream effects on everything. In a state like Illinois, we always say that we may be a blue state. We're probably really a purple state, but we've got a real problem. The Democrats are much more aggressive. They're much more focused, and they're much more ruthless than what Republicans are. And that's how you get a state that's drugged so far to the left. Because for too long there's been a deficit of accountability from Republicans, and quite frankly, courage from Republicans. So that's what the Freedom Caucus does. We hold people accountable, we hold our own party accountable, and we hold the other party accountable, and we try to show people that, hey, it's okay to be bold on some issues. It's okay to be bold on every issue. We need to be in states like Illinois. We've got to take some chances. We've got to get out there. We've got a message, because there is a core group of folks in the state of Illinois that are hurting. They're hurting because of bad public policy that's been generations in the making, and they just need people to stand up and fight for them. We don't stand up and fight for the Chamber of Commerce and all these other folks, the unions and the special interest group, and pretty much the people that have run Springfield into the ground for the last couple decades. We try to make it a point to stand for and advocate for regular working folks in the state, and we're changing the Republican Party. We're changing the trajectory of things, and I think that it's a long slog, but we keep going this direction, and I think that we're going to see some better results. And it's so important also that you get together in groups like this with states from all around the country. I think it's really important for these red states to interact with Republicans from blue states, because there is a big difference in how the majorities interact with the minorities in a blue state, a state like Illinois or California or some of these, or Maryland. They're here as well. The blues, they rule ruthlessly. And if we're going to save America, our red states need to have the courage to do the same thing. So,
Representative Niemerg.
Yeah, it's really an honor and a privilege to be here with like-minded conservatives here in Dallas, and with my Freedom Caucus colleagues here. It's pretty amazing to be in a room with over 200 plus conservative Republicans that want to take on the establishment, the swamp, and also the Democrats. And when we're back in Illinois, there's just a few of us, and we feel really a little overwhelmed sometimes fighting against the swamp in Springfield, as well as the Republican Party and some of the things that the Republicans try to do. When we come to a place like this, a lot of like-minded individuals, and it makes you feel really good, and leave just feeling really good about the future and what we're doing as Republicans, and moreover as conservatives. But as Republicans in the state of Illinois, it's important that we stay the course to the Republican Party platform. And all too often, as my colleagues had just talked about, Republicans deviate from that, whether it be the Clean Energy Jobs Act, gas tax, voting for the 32% income tax increase. These things cannot happen. And as Republicans, we have to show that we're different than the Democrats. Everybody in this room takes the hard way. We take the hard way. Everybody that's here in Dallas, folks like Jim DeMint took the hard way. Mark Meadows took the hard way. Keith Self took the hard way. These individuals fight for truth, justice, and the American way. And that's what we're about here in the Freedom Caucus, to be the North Star of conservatism. And something that I just want to tell my Republican colleagues that just don't quite understand or get with the program yet is, what do you have to lose? In the state of Illinois, what do you have to lose? Because the people are suffering because of your bad votes. So we need to change the way we do business. with the establishment in the state of Illinois, and we're here to be that North Star of conservatism.
I have not seen any headlines about what is possibly going on in Chicago, but your thoughts on the Trump administration talking about flooding the zone. They've been talking about it for weeks. Should that happen, or should it be a more kind of restrained approach, or how should this situation be
It
handled?
should never be a restrained approach when it comes to enforcing the law, especially in terms of public safety. You know, we've all seen the headlines over the summer, the murders, the carjackings, everything else that's going on, especially in the city of Chicago. And in what world is it okay for a supposed leader of the state to absolutely out of hand reject help from the federal government when it comes to this stuff, because people are literally suffering, they're literally dying, and on top of that, there's huge economic issues with illegal immigration. Let's face it, illegal immigration drives down wages for American workers, and that's who we're supposed to be supporting. So I just think it's crazy that J.B. Pritzker is just making a mockery of himself.
And it's really a joke that he's telling the president, hey, we don't need you here. There's nothing to see. Brandon Johnson, hey, there's nothing to see here. We have crime under control. I've been in the legislature for almost 5 years, and Chicago has been gun violence capital of the world, and you're not even allowed to have a gun in the city of Chicago. So that's a whole other conversation that we need to talk about. But for the governor to say, well, everything's fine here, nothing to see, and we have, 80 shootings, eight folks dead over the weekend, and it's just a constant problem that's going on. So the Democrats are very good at ignoring what the problems are, manufacturing a crisis, and then just letting the people of Illinois completely suffer. You see the Safety Act that prioritizes criminals ahead of law-abiding citizens. You see illegal immigration. We've spent $3.4 billion on illegal immigration in the state of Illinois. You had Tom Homan talking about the rapists and murderers that he arrested in Chicago, yet Pritzker and Brandon Johnson and the radical left and the Democrats say there's nothing to see here. So it's hypocrisy at the highest level, and that needs to change.
Well, another thing we got to remember is that Governor Pritzker thinks it's acceptable to go from an unacceptable level of crime to an unacceptable level of crime. The Democrats have mastered the protest rallies, but they protest for due process for illegal immigrants, and then they protest ICE when black kids are slaughtered on the south side of Chicago. And so they're on the wrong side of these issues. They're very pro-criminal. They're very anti-cop, and they're anti-safe communities. We saw polling come out just recently that black and brown communities in the city of Chicago want public safety. It's J.B. Pritzker that's protected by walls and private security, and Grand Cayman trust funds that are simply saying, you know what, you don't deserve that safety because Governor Pritzker doesn't play by the same set of rules as the everyday people in Chicago. And in many places in the city of Chicago, it's a war zone. And those challenges that we have in the city of Chicago come out to Rockford, come out to our districts, all of our districts. And anti-crime initiatives should not be partisan, but it's only partisan because of the interests of the Democrat Party of who they want to align with. They don't care about due process. What the challenge they have in the city of Chicago and also in the state of Illinois is they're losing population. The only population that Governor Pritzker has been able to increase was the illegal population in our state. He's a net out migration of legal residents. And so there's obviously concerns about, an interest in congressional apportionments and others, but Governor Pritzker is taking positions that are very radical, very unpopular, and are only masked by his trust fund that allow him to drive home initiatives that are widely unpopular in the state.
I got just two other things I'm curious about. The governor a couple of weeks ago was asked about the idea of Indiana taking some counties from Illinois, but really the question was about separating the state into two. He said, if you don't want to stick around and help make the state better, go ahead and get up and leave.
My advice to the governor would be, you go ahead and get up and leave, because you've ran this state into the freaking ground, and everybody can see it. So I think that's insulting to the people of the state of Illinois. It's insulting to every Illinoisan that the governor has the audacity to say, if you don't like what's happening, if you don't like my radical measures, you can leave this state. This governor had a $55 billion budget. He spent $3.4 billion on illegal immigration. We have the most radical abortion laws in the books in the entire country. He is letting men and women's sports, men and women's safe spaces, violating all of these common sense social issues. We have third graders who are taking gender hormone treatment, kindergartners who are taught they don't know the difference between a boy and a girl, and this jerk has the audacity to tell working class people in the state of Illinois, if you don't like it, leave. Give me a break.
I also think it's, the better question is, why do so many people hate their government, hate the people that are supposed to be leading us so much that they want to go somewhere else? That's a major problem. They like to talk to us about that, but they really need to be answering that question. Why have they treated people so poorly that, what is it, 26 counties, something like that? 34 have voted to basically get the hell out of Illinois, and they're not doing it by 51%. Most of them are doing it 80% plus.
Right.
So.
Well, I think it's a shameful thing for the governor to say to the people. The governor of the 6th largest state in the nation, and it's not because Pennsylvania grew, it's because we lost population. He should be encouraging people to come in to the state, and what he wants to do is just kick us out, if you will. But yet he wants to court the Chinese communists.
The problem that we've got in the state is it's really difficult to do business in this state. The cost of doing business in this state versus our immediate neighbors is higher. So he wonders why people leave. Well, that's why. From our taxes to overregulation, it just makes it really difficult if you're going to compete economically to do business in the state. And I love this state. I don't want to leave. I want to fight for it. All of us could get up and leave, other than Chris, because he's got farm ground. So yeah, somebody should ask why are people leaving, and the governor needs to answer that question. Actually,
Yeah.
I think that's very true too, because one thing about it is that in order to come up with a solution, you have to admit that you have a problem, and that's one thing that J.B. Pritzker's not been able to come to grips with is, because if it was me, I would be doing some soul searching and asking the question, why are businesses and people leaving the state of Illinois? And to me, the answers are as clear as the nose on your face when you think about the things that he has destroyed here in Illinois. He's destroyed safety and security. He's destroying quality education. He's destroying economic opportunity. He's destroying our energy independence. And those four things are huge drivers for the quality of life issues there in the state of Illinois. Every working class family has been suffering because of Pritzker and the Democrats' bad public policy. And I think that in order to come up with a solution, you have to admit that bad public policy has driven all those things, and it's been a real catalyst in the massive inflation that we've seen here in the state of Illinois. And the good news is that the environment was created through bad public policy, and through good public policy, everything that's wrong with Illinois could be fixed.
And then finally, the 2026 election just around the corner. Is Illinois' Republican Party in shape to be able to take on Pritzker and hundreds of millions of dollars?
Not right now, no. It needs to do better. As Republicans, we're, like I said, we're the North Star of conservatism here in the state of Illinois, and some of our Republican colleagues, they feel that they've got to placate to the left. And I think that we need to show the difference between us and the left, just like what Governor Ron DeSantis did down in Florida. And I think that's the pathway to victory. Now, it's going to take a lot of money. We need infrastructure. We need to chase down low propensity Republican voters like they did in Pennsylvania. But right now, I'll be honest with you, the Republican Party is splintered because the establishment can't admit, as Chris said, that they have a problem leaning to the left.
Well, we got to remember that the state of Illinois, the minority party, has not been run by a bunch of conservatives. It's run by a bunch of establishments that continue to lose. And so we get lectured almost daily by the establishment on what we need to do to win, but they don't produce or yield a result that's winning, right? I mean, our numbers keep going down. And so I might suggest that they take a look at the party that they put on that they say they belong to, and just follow the party platform. The reason the Freedom Caucus, again, exists is because they don't follow the party platform, specifically their tax policies, their energy policies, etc. And so the reason that we can't differentiate ourselves between the Democrat Party is the leadership has joined them on virtually every major initiative that has screwed the taxpayers, right? I mean, the Freedom Caucus exists because when the establishment and the Democrats get together, establishment Republican and Democrats get together, the taxpayers are going to get injured, right? And so, you know, what does 2026 look like? In the state of Illinois, it's a challenge because we don't have the bold leadership like we see in Florida, like we see in other states. And so they're going to suggest it's because they don't have the right candidate. They don't follow the party platform, and the people, the leadership within the party is only splintered because what they say in their districts isn't how they vote in Springfield.